Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Uh, Today is a very special day. Instead of let's talk about America, we're going to do a little talking about Israel. So, this is episode, I think, number 35, I believe. It is October 25th, and today I'm joined by the wonderful, the amazing, the mystical, the unrenowned Daniella Sa'ar. She is a Israeli lady. A woman of my heart I have known for more than a decade now. Wow.
We're really old.
We are old. And she has kindly taken a vacation away from the Holy Land to come to the Netherlands and visit. So I'm trying to get her to today talk about Israel and all the wonderful things happening there right now. So Daniela, give yourself a round of applause.
I am. And also to you for your wonderful euphemisms. This is definitely an attempt to a vacation in difficult circumstances. About a week ago, my ex, he was born in France, we were evacuated with the French embassy to his mother's house.
The father of
Yes, the
your
father of my son.
ex-husband, not
My
just
ex-husband.
ex-lover, ex-husband.
The father of my son,
Yes.
he wanted to leave Israel because we are at war. And although I did not want to go to his mother's house in these desperate times, I agreed. And after a few days, we moved to my aunt in the Netherlands. So I'm here now.
Wonderful.
Like shitty circumstances, but I'm really happy to be here.
Yes, well, unfortunately, the Netherlands is probably much worse than being in Israel at the moment. So, but welcome anyways. Right.
Yes. What really comes up lately is that the entire issue of safety is super personal to people. Like your sense of safety. What
personal
makes you,
safety.
Yeah, what makes you feel safe? It's very individual. So I also feel less safe in Europe rather than Israel.
Yeah.
Really? Yes. Yes, I really miss my home.
Is that do you mean like society in general?
Walking down the street.
In Paris. Oh, in France.
In Paris especially, people tell me France is worse, the Netherlands is worse. I don't think you can really know. I just feel like the most dangerous thing to me is an angry, unexpected mob. Right.
Yes, which is Europe is known for their mobs.
Yeah. So I walk around with my son, and like me, he's very verbal, and like Israelis, he's very loud. And I keep thinking, when will somebody hear us and realize that we're Israelis, and it will piss them off? So I do not feel safe walking down the streets, and it's ironic. I feel safer in Israel.
Learn sign language.
Wow, I wish I knew sign language.
No. But yeah, I think most people would not imagine that Europe could be considered more dangerous or more unsafe than Israel. So to hear it from that perspective, as a mother walking with child, the
Yes.
most vulnerable of people.
I think that the people that cannot imagine that, they're not Jewish. I think it's very much a Jewish thing to be afraid to walk around outside of Israel. When we travel abroad, there are places in which we're being told, do not say that you're Jewish.
Oh,
absolutely. That you're Israeli because that's dangerous. And I never did that, but now I will not say that I am Israeli, but I do feel like I need to narrow down the public spaces in which I am walking.
You used to, a long time ago, when I was a bit younger, when I was a young, agile man, I spent a lot of time down in South America way. And there's Israelis, of course, as soon as they get out of the army, they take all their money, they go down hiking through the mountains or whatnot. But they all would, it was always not a secret. I mean, once you got to know them, once you started talking, they would come clean, we're Israeli, whatever. But they would always lie to the reception. They were Canadian or Australian. They'd make up some bullshit. But it was a thing that you have to keep it a secret because you never know, who is angry, who is out to get you. And
yes,
maybe you even know there's an organization, Beit Chabad. It's like they're in everywhere. They're in Thailand. They're And you walk past these places, and it'll be the one sort of hostel, one hotel in the city that's just got armed guards standing
Yes.
outside.
Yes.
So, but that is a thing, I think.
Yes, I think that this is also why there's a strong Jewish and Israeli solidarity worldwide. You know, even my ex-husband's mom, she would open her house to me. We're not on good terms, but
Wow.
you know, this is the
You
thing that
broke
you
our
do.
boy's heart. You broke our baby boy's heart. What do you expect?
Well, it's more complicated than that, but
Well,
we will talk about how
just
things.
like everything else in Israel, huh?
Yes,
It's always complicated.
yes, and I think that also what we see now
I don't want
is,
to say you people, but why are you people always so complicated with everything?
well, we are complicated people, but I think that also what we see right now with this whole like PC liberal progress talk is that there is this like attempt to make complicated reality much more black and white, stereotypical, easy to understand reality. And I see, you know, I even see maps of Israel on foreign media and they don't know where Tel Aviv is.
Of course not.
There's a lot of
They
ignorance.
know where Jaffa is, though.
Yeah.
Of course.
There's a lot of
This
ignorance about the situation in the Middle East and in Israel and the relationship between Israel and Palestine.
I
And
think this is coming from this new liberal idea of deconstructivism, trying to deconstruct everything. Everything has to be broken down to its root causes, and the people who think like this, and this is common in the this young generation, the Gen Z, getting their liberal arts degrees in all these colleges. They're learning how everything has to be deconstructed, decolonialized, demystified, and they try to take very difficult ideas, very complex problems, and make them easily definable and digestible. So that's why they take something so complicated as Israel Palestine and they want to make it black and white. They want to make it good versus evil, oppressor versus colonizer, and it's
yes,
simply not. It's such a complex issue. You cannot break it down into a two-sided coin. You have
yes,
to.
and I think that it's really the perfect ground for anti-Semitism because obviously the evil side of the map will be the Jewish people or the Israeli people, and you know I know in Israel we study a lot about World War II and the Holocaust, and you know we always ask ourselves, how come that happened? How come such extreme actions, and how come such a violent reality came to be? And now you see how people talk, you see how people express themselves, and I feel like wow, I'm living through it right now. I see how the blood of Jewish people and Israelis is just being, you know, it's being shed, and people are like, well, but there's a whataboutism, there is a context to it. I will say this a bit more quietly because our children are playing in the other room, but how can there be a
Ninja Turtles. They're
whataboutism?
playing Ninja Turtles, by
Of
the way.
course, Ninja
Yes.
Turtles are the best, but how come there's a whataboutism when a pregnant woman's gut is cut open and her baby is stabbed? And I'm really sorry about the triggering images
Let's save the juicy bits for a few more minutes down
for
the
a few
road.
more minutes.
Yes.
I'm sorry. I'll
Yeah, of
tell that
course.
for me, I'm really struggling with seeing people relate to Palestinian pain and not to Israeli pain. It's as if their sympathy has a limit. You know, it's like Gerda saying, I thought it goes without saying that I empathize that there is also Israeli pain. And it goes without saying because you did not say that.
That is true.
People do not talk about the pain and the massacre that we've been through, and I'm thinking, wow, this is what happened in the Holocaust. You know, Jews were put on trains, set away, locked into ghettos, and it was really comfortable for people, and they didn't talk about it.
I think a lot of that has the reason there's no sympathy right now for Israel is this new era of victimhood as a monetary device almost. People can make a living now being a professional victim, and
Yes.
everything in today's society, whether it be Black Lives Matter, trans rights, whatever it has to be, you always have to be on the side of a victim. You can't ever just say something is objectively right or wrong. You always have to pick the side of the victim in this. And realistically speaking, Israel is a powerful, well-armed, strong, very strong nation.
We are.
So, the, by this logic, by this victimhood logic, no one can gain anything by supporting. They have to support the underdog. They have whatever, if it's right or if it's wrong, even if it's evil versus good,
Yeah.
it's still the underdog has to always be supported if you're gonna try to be a victim 24/7. And I think this is why people don't want to support Israel or sympathize with Israel because, again, realistically, Israel is the stronger in this, debate, in this battle. They're the stronger nation. They're the stronger, whether you like it or not, people.
Yes.
Okay, I get when it comes to specifically Gaza versus Israel, it's no contest. If it was an all-out war, if it was an all-out anything, Israel would be victorious. So supporting the victim is just, it's the fashion of today. So
I really feel like this is what I'm seeing. I'm on social media like everybody. There's people that I support, that I follow them, that I appreciate them, and
sorry,
I see.
one question. I'm
Yes.
sorry. So since Hebrew is right to left, do you swipe left on Tinder or do you swipe right?
Who do I swipe?
On Tinder, do you swipe backwards whenever you want to pick somebody?
I'm actually not on Tinder. I am married to a wonderful man.
No, that
he
was
stayed in Israel.
Where is he, by the way? Why did he not come to Europe with you?
Because everything's complicated. Look, my ex-husband, we are on good terms, and he contacted the French embassy, and he managed to get us on the list to get on a plane and leave, and he offered my current husband Itamar a place also to live. And
one question,
yes.
So he went, Yoni, the Frenchman, he went through
Yes.
he went through the French embassy.
Yes.
Is it at the moment
we
all
tried
the
to
flights?
book an ordinary flight, but all the flights got canceled. The flights that are not from Israeli commercial flights are being canceled left and right. So we had like 3 different flights.
But it's a state order they're canceled, or it's the airlines themselves just don't want to fly?
I think it's the airlines themselves. I think that also, like, first and foremost, you need a crew to fly the plane. I don't know if people, whoever they're from, those airline companies, if their crew wants to even get on a plane to Israel, and I don't know if these companies even want to take the risk. When we were on the plane ready to leave, there was an alarm that says that there's a rocket heading towards us, and we were on the plane
at the
airport. We were about to take off, and then the siren went on, and I thought that I was getting a heart attack. It was so stressful. Luckily, my son didn't even notice that the siren went on, and that delayed our departure in about an hour until it was safe to take flight.
But so
Itamar, he didn't want to leave, and I get him. I think that if I didn't have this option, if my ex Yoni wouldn't provide me with this option to leave, I don't think that I would have. I think that this is also a very Jewish and Israeli thing, that when things are tough, you go and you fight. You face the difficulty. You don't run away with it. We have such a strong sense of solidarity. October 7th, we wake up from an alarm, and I don't think that Americans get it. That this is a reality. This is a thing that happens. Occasionally, we would wake up and there would be an alarm. And I live in Jaffa, which is really, we are neighbors with Tel Aviv. We wake up from an alarm. I take the blanket that I sleep with, I wrap it around me because I sleep in the nude, and we sit in the...
Did you know, was it that...
Just the siren went on. We had no idea. We woke up.
The days leading up, on the 4th, the 5th, the 6th, did anything seem weird? Was there any...
No
alerts on your phone? No. Nothing in the news?
No. There are times in which things are heating up. And I live in Jaffa, which is... It's right up to Tel Aviv. We're neighbors. Tel Aviv, we're the same municipality. And we are not close to the border. We are within the range of the rockets, but there was nothing heating up in the West Negev. It's one of our 3 deserts, and where Gaza is. So in the West Negev, there was nothing in the days leading up to that. We woke up on a Saturday. It was a holiday. An alarm goes on. We went to the staircase, which is the safe room in our building. In Israel, everybody knows where their safe space is in case there's a rocket launch.
It's correct that in every building will have one.
In
It's by
Israel,
law, I think by law or something that every building has to have a safe room.
well, around the Gaza Strip, there was a law that said that you must build safe rooms. And this law was initiated, I think, about 15 or 20 years ago. And I lived for a year close to Gaza, and really each house had a safe room. Now in Israel, when you build buildings, you must have a safe room. But my building is from, like, I don't know, the 70s or something. It's really old. But you know where your safe space is.
So you're in an old building from
Yes.
the 70s.
Yes, and we're sitting at the staircase with our neighbors. It's always a fun thing to meet our neighbors like that. And then we go back home and we open the news, as we often do, and we realize that there's a massive attack on all the Western Negev settlements there, all the kibbutzim, all the cities. Itamar, my partner, he's receiving like images of terrorists with machine guns and rifles driving through the cities, shooting at people, at civilians. We receive messages on social media like friends saying
a lot of the videos they were saying that they were live streamed. Were you seeing that as it was happening, or?
So for me it was really difficult at real time to tune into all the horror. My partner, he immediately got into the Telegram, the app, and he saw all the horrors basically. But there were images, even if you didn't see them, it got to you. You know, like my friend, she's posting on social media. My nephews are locked in the safe room of their house. The mother and father was shot. The baby is gone. And at that point, we don't know if the baby is dead or if she was kidnapped. Why? Now we know that she's kidnapped. She's a 3-year-old alone in the Gaza Strip. And we don't know what's going on with her. Now her nephews are with her and she will adopt them. She started the process. But they were alone, hiding in the closet for over 12 hours. Another friend posting, my cousin, she's pregnant, she's in the safe room, she's going into labor, they're burning down her house. So I was, contacting midwives so we can have somebody that will help her deliver over the phone and to get instructions on how to deliver your baby safely. There, and also trying to get somebody to rescue her. What has happened was not only that terrorists attacked us, it was really difficult there were so many arenas going on, hundreds of arenas. You hear about there was a police station in Sderot that they held a shooting fight there for over 12 hours. People who were held hostages in their home for hours. Kibbutzim were just houses after houses being burned down, taking out people, kidnapping them to the Gaza Strip. So there were hundreds of arenas to attend to at the same time, and we just had civilians driving into the combat zone and rescuing civilians independently.
I saw a lot of this, that there were, just people driving down from the cities, and they didn't know what they were going for. They didn't know, what was happening. They just headed down south and were ready to go.
Yes, we have amazing heroic stories about people just taking their car and driving and rescuing as many people as possible.
I think it's a common, the common image of, you go to Tel Aviv, you see the girls in bikinis with their guns on, and all the soldiers, they have to carry their guns everywhere. Was this at the moment, was that sort of the thing where everybody grabbed what they had and just got in the car and started going?
Yes, so you have stories about like people who were in the reserves or a service over combat,
Yeah.
service in the army, and they just took their stuff and left. You had people who are soldiers on vacations and they have guns, and you have also people who were in complete civilian mode and they just took action. There was the supernova party, a rave that
Yeah.
the terrorists knew of,
I
and
think
they
everyone's seen all
yes.
this. Yeah.
So there are people who were there and they just fought the terrorists and took their guns and fought back.
There was one situation I saw that was me being the redneck American I am. I applaud every single one of these people who, had guns on hand, ready to go, and knew how to use them. That's,
That's very much an Israeli thing.
That's a very American thing, and I think that's where we can. That's why we're such close nations. But there was one situation that I saw where an older couple, I think in their 50s or 60s, they were on a kibbutz, and a squad of Hamas came through, and they didn't know that old couple used to be badasses, and they just dropped them all. I think they dropped 12 of them and defended the kibbutz, and everyone survived.
Yes.
And it was all just because of two 60-year-old, a couple. And
there are amazing stories. There is a story about each kibbutz, they have a preparedness squad with a team leader, and they have guns. They are prepared in advance. And on that Saturday morning, one of those team leader, which is a very
maybe you can quickly, because I think a lot of people who might be watching probably don't know. When you say kibbutz,
yes.
they think a settlement. I think a lot of people are confused by this. They think settlements. They think, curly-haired, crazy people out in the desert pushing Palestinians away.
No, kibbutzim is traditionally a left-wing. I want to say settlement, but settlement is
commune.
A commune.
Yeah.
Yes, they are literally communes.
Yeah.
They now we are in a very capitalist world, so that old ideology kind of faded away. But those are people that believed in extreme sharing. So everybody worked for the kibbutz. People that do not have personal bank accounts, there is the kibbutz bank account. Everybody worked for the kibbutz. Traditionally, the kids were raised together. They would not sleep in their parents' house. They would sleep in the kids' rooms. And there's a shared dining hall. And those are people who believed in living in a commune lifestyle. And now it looks a bit different than it used to in the 70s. The kids do sleep with their parents. You can eat your own meals at your own home, but those are very close and intimate communities. And this is why also the tragedy is so big, because there are communities right now that 1 of 4 people is either dead or abducted or injured. This is a tragedy for those communities.
And now, don't you find it a bit ironic that here in Europe and in America, the people who would normally support that type of community, support that type of lifestyle, are the exact people who are actively rooting against Israel at the moment?
Saying it's ironic is like looking at it at the latter side. I find it tragic. I find it tragic that women who define themselves as feminists do not see the tragedy in being raped close to your.
I want to make it very clear to everybody. Daniella here, she is the most lefty liberal person in my life. Her politics drive me up the wall half the time.
Yes.
So keep that in mind when you hear these opinions.
Yes,
and
in Israel, I am considered an annoying feminist because Hebrew is a gendered language. There's male and female.
Oh no, you don't do
words
that
for
there.
everything. So I talk in the female words for everything, which drives
that's even
men
better.
insane.
I thought you were gonna say you do like some weird neutral language or something, gender neutral.
If I have to write public messages, I would write in a way that could address everybody.
Yeah.
But yeah, when I'm a teacher, and when I teach, I speak in the female form of the language. So my male students, they are always extremely pissed. Like, why are you not addressing us? And I see, this is so interesting. The language is excluding people. Let's talk about it. So yes, I would be considered, one of those liberal, progressive, radical, left wing people. I protest, you know, for peace. I am pro two state solution. I know that you don't feel the same. Uh,
I'm no state solution.
yeah, no, I did. In a larger scale, I believe that the nation state is a concept that should have died centuries ago.
But okay, so you being so very left of center, if you
Yeah.
will, how does it make you feel seeing that people that you're politically and ideologically aligned with
Yes.
in Europe and America actively rooting not only against you, your people, your state, but in general, this whole situation, rooting against everything that Israel stands for? Because let's be honest, Israel is the most liberal state in the whole Middle East. I mean,
Yes.
a couple of years ago now, gay marriage was passed.
I wish gay marriage passed. Israel. We are really struggling because there is no separation of church and state in Israel, which means that we need to. We don't really have a pro LGBT legislation, but we do it through our Supreme Court.
Yeah.
We have.
But
judges
overall,
that rule in favor of the LGBTQ community, and through that we are able to progress as a society. I wish that we would have stronger legislation, but when I see those people abroad, I first of all I feel sorry for them because I feel like Hamas is winning on their expense, because those people, if Hamas terrorists would meet them, they would shoot them and dance. They do not care for your purple hair, non-binary
you used
expression.
You used to have purple hair.
I did used to have purple
blue
hair, but
pink hair. All
yes, but I also acknowledge that a terrorist is a terrorist.
Yeah, of course, of course.
I think that.
Do you think that the Hamas members, they got extra money from the government for every purple-haired person that they shot? I'm gonna cut that out.
No, but we do know that they were promised an apartment and a grant of $10,000 for every person that they kidnapped.
Yeah.
Which is to me is also heartbreaking. Like, if you are a liberal person, how do you think that this is a legitimate way to accomplish peace or sovereignty or autonomy for an oppressed nation, right? To kill and abduct civilians, is that a normal way to engage in fight or to promote Palestinians? It seems ludicrous to me.
This is really a point that I've made so many times when discussing, Israel and Palestine. When people say, yes, but Israel kills civilians. Yes, but Israel is also doing this and this. And the reality is just as well, anytime there's like a settler or an army soldier who shoots somebody and it's not completely above board, they get punished for it. They go to jail. So not all the time, but a lot of times.
We are in a very difficult situation.
It's not a state law. In Gaza, it is the Hamas themselves putting out bounties, paying stipends. If you go and for every Israeli you kill, you get money.
Yes.
If you die a martyr, your family gets money, gets an apartment. This is part of their infrastructure. This is their economy.
Yes.
In Israel, that's not the case. Israelis are protesting it. People like you, yourself, would be out protesting every time, a little Palestinian kid gets shot or something.
It breaks my heart. And what happens, I feel like pain is pain, and nobody has a privilege over pain.
But that's why I hate this. Yeah, but Israel does bad things too. Oh, yeah, of course. But the people in Israel do not support every bad thing that a soldier does.
True. And I think that foreign media, when they coverage Israel, they prefer to portray the fundamentalists, the fanatics, and this is not everybody, and also our government isn't us. And I would say that as an Israeli, that my government has failed me, because what's happening right now it showed incapacity of our government. There is a major fuck up. If anybody, if you know history, if you've heard of the Yom Kippur War, which happened 50 years ago, really 50 years ago to this event, it was a major war that took Israel by surprise, because intelligence was not interpreted properly. And the same thing happened with us right now. 50 years again, we had data, we had information, it was not read properly, and we were not prepared.
So what do you say about this left-wing conspiracy that I'm seeing going around, that the Israeli government purposefully turn their head away, let the invasion happen, let the atrocities occur?
Again, people looking for simple answers when the answers are complicated. I would say this: I do not think that there was a conspiracy, or a specific betrayal, as people would like to portray it. What I can say as an Israeli citizen is that gradually forces and arms were moved into the West Bank, but more specifically to the ABC territories, because we are finding ourselves in a more and more right-wing, fundamentalist, religious fanatics in our government, and they want to strengthen the settlers in the West Banks. They took out weapons from the kibbutzim. They took out forces that surrounded the Gaza Strip, that were meant to protect people. There is a force called Ugdat Aza. They were not in Gaza. They were elsewhere. So I think that
do you not think that
our eyes were directed at the wrong direction?
Does that not feed in a little bit to the conspiracy of why would you move your position from the more dangerous area to the more stabilized area?
It's not a matter of conspiracy, it's a matter of stupidity.
And
because the army chose to keep settlers in the West Bank safe. They want to surround them in military forces rather than keep them close to the Gaza Strip in case anything happens. And if they don't see intelligence that anything can happen, they think, okay, it's safe, we can move forces from here to there.
Maybe who in the media at the moment, in the Israeli media,
yes.
Is there a general commander that is being, all the blame is saying, hey, this was your fault, you were the one that was supposed to be watching this? Is there one guy, or is it
first of all, sadly, our government has about 20 plus ministers, and they open like shit ministries. We have a ministry of intelligence, a ministry of national operations, a minister of defense, we have a prime minister.
Benjamin Netanyahu, by the way, for you people who don't know his name. Bibi, as I like to call him.
Okay. As he likes to call himself.
Uncle Bibi. Okay.
Nobody is taking responsibility, and the people in Israel...
Is anybody pointing fingers, pointing blame?
Of course they're pointing blames, but it's a political game. Because you can say that you take responsibility, that you take partial responsibility, that somebody else is responsible, but when you own the responsibility, it has to be manifested in action. Right? Responsibility is taking action. You can say, I am responsible over my son Ari. But if you let him cross the street without looking left and right, you are not. You have to pull him back and say, hey, Ari, look at the stoplight, right? The responsibility has to be manifested into action. And as far as I'm concerned, if nobody's quitting their job, they do not take responsibility. Because then you say, okay, I fucked up and I am not entitled to manage this war.
I think most people probably don't know this, but Israel is famous for sending their politicians to prison. So
I
Who's
wish we
going to
were.
who? Yeah, you are. You had what's his name? Omer. Who was the prime minister? Who
With
went to?
Olmert,
Yeah, didn't he go to
we have
prison?
to. I wish that corrupted people will go to jail. We have too many corrupted people
Which
who do not go to jail.
which prime minister went to prison?
Ehud Olmert.
It was him. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
See, that would never happen. The people in America wish they could send Donald Trump to prison, but that will never happen. I'm saying Israel is it's quite famous for sending, politicians to prison. So
We're
at the end,
famous for it. Good for us.
at the end of this, who's going to jail for this? Who's going to prison? Who is this all gonna fall on?
Listen.
Is it gonna be Netanyahu's fault forever, or is he gonna pawn it off?
For me, it has to be Netanyahu, but I don't think that it's him alone. He is the prime minister, which means that he has the biggest, the vast, the most radical responsibility over the safety of the Israeli people is his, right? You also have the Minister of Defense. You have the Minister of Intelligence. Where the fuck is she?
Well, to give a bit of a parallel, so this is what ruined Hillary Clinton's whole career was Benghazi when she was Secretary of State in 2012 when the embassy in Libya got overrun. She was the fall guy. Okay, her and Obama fucked that up, but that ruined Hillary Clinton. Since then she hasn't held a position, lost the election because people brought up that, and she's one of the most powerful politicians in the world, essentially. So I have to see that somebody, in a year's time when this war is over.
I hope these things happen faster. In Israel we have this fear. People are saying this is wartime. We should be focusing on the war and not on politics. But I feel like politics are an integral part of war. I don't think you can separate these two.
Yeah, of course.
I wish that the responsible people will go home right now, but people are saying, let's deal with it when the war is over, and I'm concerned that people will elongate this war and will not let it end, so we could not send them home. I am worried about that.
I think that's the concern right now with the Jewish American population is, America is very divided right now of whether we want to support Israel in this because, as we were speaking about earlier, America's been at war now for my entire life, basically. Since the late 90s, we've constantly been fucking with somebody. And I think the past few years we kind of stopped, and now with Russia and Ukraine, now Israel and Palestine, America is just saying no more, done. We're not going to do anything. We're not going to support anybody. We don't want to take part in a war that's not for America. So, what can America do and convince the people who don't want to support Israel? Sell it to them. Tell them why we should be sending tax money to Israel. Why we should be sending weapons. Why we should put our Navy off the coast. Why we should be sending the Air Force.
Support has many colors, okay? And
it has one color, green. It's green.
Yes, but I think that sending out the Navy and allowing us to fund Iron Dome are two different things, okay? I want to start, first of all, about the Iron Dome because it saves life, and I think that it also really changes the reality of war. The Iron Dome is an amazing invention that was...
I've only seen it twice in real life.
It was promoted by a Minister of Defense that was considered not qualified for the job. His name is Amir Peretz, and he was a socialist. And when in Israel...
Sounds like a Mexican. Perez.
He has an amazing mustache, a really iconic one. And when he was appointed to the Minister of Defense, people in Israel were like, what the fuck? He doesn't have the experience. But he lived his entire life in Sderot, which is the city closest to Gaza. And they took lots of rockets throughout the years. Children dying in the street, horrific stories. And he promoted the Iron Dome, which means that this is a system that is able to recognize a rocket being launched, know what its trajectory in, send another rocket to counter it mid-air and explode in the air.
So basically magic. It's pretty much fucking Harry Potter magic.
Yeah. Only in real life. And since this war has started, we were fired at with over 16,000 rockets, but you barely see buildings being ruined, although there are many infrastructure being ruined.
When was it last time that it was like 2020?
What?
Remember when they were hitting Tel Aviv a little bit? Was it in 20 or 21?
It happens all the time. We
But
had it 2 years ago.
You sent me that picture of like the apartment across from yours where they had hit the roof. What was that? When was that?
There was a building 100 meters from my sister now being. It got a direct hit.
Point being, it does happen all the time.
Anyway, it happens all the time, and it literally saves lives because from over 6,000 rockets, I think now it's maybe closer to 8.
And when did it was 2008 when the Iron Dome started, or 12 or something?
I think it was 12. I honestly do not recall specifically. We can Google it in a second, but I think that it changes a lot the face of the war because Israel is receiving a lot of hate, but you don't see it.
Yeah,
because we have the Iron Dome saving us. When we go to the safe room, we hear the targeting of Iron Dome hitting rockets. You hear it above your head. You hear your life being saved. Boom, 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 and you know that the Iron Dome just saved your life.
Now, do you know how much it costs to keep this thing going every year? Is that?
I bet that it's like billions of dollars.
But
so in that sense, I do believe that Americans should support that because you do not. I cannot fathom who would want civilians to be hurt. Well, are you smiling because I said fathom?
No, I was just gonna say, why do you want the taxpayer if the Jews run the banks? Why can't you just pay for it out of the vaults?
The Jews run the banks, but my bank account is empty at the moment.
No, but
the Jews can give me money.
But that's the thing I think with a lot of people who are very anti support right now is they don't want to. We've watched over the past year where every week Joe Biden has been giving 10 billion, 20 billion, 30 billion to little Zelensky in the Ukraine.
Joe Biden is our daddy right now.
Yeah, you guys love him, but America doesn't. But we've been watching that all the tax money has been going every week to Ukraine.
I bet it's extremely frustrating.
But now people are saying, yeah, we're not again. Like, we don't want to do this again. We don't want to be giving out 2 things.
Yes.
So why? Convince them.
If saving lives doesn't convince you, then I really don't think that.
Well, it has to be more than saving lives, because to be fair, people don't give a fuck. People don't care. People don't care about saving Ukrainians.
As far as I can see it, terror organizations, they are not. Their goal is not just geographic.
Hypothetically,
it's always a fanatic ideology. That perceives the world in a certain way. What do you think that if they take down Israel, they will be saddled with that? That will
Absolutely
be it?
Not.
No.
You know what I think Israel should do?
They would come out for other Western world countries. So as far as I'm concerned, if you could take Al Qaeda before it sent the planes in 9/11, wouldn't you?
I think that's the whole reason that we all disagree about that is because they didn't. They let it happen.
But if you could go back in time and take down Al Qaeda before 9/11, would that be a good investment of your money?
That's a philosophical question that I personally wouldn't agree with because I believe in the grandfather effect. If you go back in time, you don't fuck with anything. Because it'll only create a vacuum where something more dangerous and evil will take place. It's the whole thing about, like, would you go back and kill baby Hitler? Well, no, because if baby Hitler wasn't there, maybe somebody more evil and more successful.
I don't know. Take out the time machine equation.
I only think in philosophical paradoxes.
I think that we see by this work I want to finish this point. The work that Hamas did, their terror work since the attack of October 7th, we see that they were not alone, not in funding and not in acquiring those abilities that they have. They have people helping them. There is an axis of evil that is working against Western countries.
That's a lame name. Y'all got to market that better. Come up with a better name.
how do you want to call it?
I don't know. I'm not a marketeer.
Same. I'm just a teacher and a poet and a breastfeeding consultant. But
But no, I think
But
you were talking about how you need to step up the Israeli government needs to step up the PR game.
we do.
Start
We
with that. Don't
definitely
call them the axis of evil. That's old. That's worn out. It sounds dirty, anyways. You gotta call them something modern, hip. You know, you're talking to Gen Z. That's who you're trying to convince. All these kids protesting.
I just
That's who you need to convince.
Hamas is not working alone, and Israel alone is not its target. It's the entire Western world. It's just that Israel is such an easy target.
Yeah.
Right? We're Jewish. We're Israeli. Nobody cares for us anyway. We are very easily to we are very easy to blame. So obviously the West world is next. And I would like the West world for its values, for its achievement, for what it stands for, to exist. I do not want to see the Western world become like the Gaza Strip, where LGBTQ, they cannot walk proudly down the street. They're being pushed out of rooftops. And you've been to my weddings. You saw Jewish people,
Lots
and
of gay people.
Palestinian, and gay, and straight, and Muslims, and Druze, and Christians. Everybody dancing in a vegan restaurant.
Yeah.
Together.
What was it? Was it like some Hungarian gypsy band or something? What were they?
Klezmer. It's like a traditional Eastern European Jewish music.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, but it sounds
very
sounds
hip. It was very hip.
So you cannot do that in the Gaza Strip.
No, of course not.
If you think that it's just about the Israeli occupation, you have it wrong, because they saw a Bedouin woman wearing hijab, driving her car, taking her husband to work. They shot her dead.
Wow.
They shot her dead. They fired rockets at Bedouin settlements.
But is that not insane right now that all of the beliefs and the tenets that sort of liberal-minded left-wing people here in Europe and in America will fight for, with gay rights, trans rights, marijuana, things like just the very liberal-minded belief system is so antithesis to what Hamas
you
and
think that the
Palestinians
in
in general
provide treatment to the trans community?
Well, of course not.
They do not give.
Have you seen these? Have you seen now these things going around where people are protesting, saying "queers for Palestine"?
It's like chickens for KFC.
Yeah. Oh my God! Like, it's so ignorant.
And it's so accurate. And I think, but that's what I'm saying. I think that people are really ignorant, and the Hamas successfully convinced people that they're like this human rights advocates, and they want to release themselves from occupation. And I am sorry, but the Israelis are the ones that are opening their border daily to give medical treatment to people from Gaza. They are being treated also at Israeli hospitals. We give them work permits. We are the ones entering food. The Rafah border, which is shared border of Gaza and Egypt, was opened just now. There is also a border with Egypt. Egypt is not occupying the Gaza Strip. They do not give them food, they do not give them work permits, and they do not serve them in hospitals. But we do. When we caught terrorists, we treated them at our hospitals.
Yeah.
And people were pissed at that. And it's like this, when I say that the reality is complicated, this is what I'm talking about.
So, everybody knows Benjamin Netanyahu. He's basically the Jewish Vladimir Putin at this point. He's popular with some, evil to others. I personally love the man. I think he's very handsome. My late, sweet, dear grandmother had a crush on him. What do you think about him? I know you're not a fan, but...
I'm not a fan. Look, I think that he's an intelligent man.
Very
Otherwise, he wouldn't make it this far. He's been the prime minister on and off for like the past 15 years.
Yeah.
My biggest problem with Netanyahu is that he's not he doesn't really have a plan or a strategy for anything. He's keeping the status quo as it is. I mean, for the past, since Israel initiated the separation, which means that we took out our military forces and settlements that we had in the Gaza Strip in 2005.
Yeah.
And then in 2007, Hamas took over. And a few years after that, Netanyahu was elected again prime minister. Ever since, Hamas has been firing rockets on and off towards Israel, and each time we would go into a military operation, we would hurt Hamas infrastructure for a while, and then they would get stronger again and hit us again. And he would say, I would take down Hamas. But he didn't.
There's I don't know if you see this going around, but people are like to say that it's obviously some sort of conspiracy because Netanyahu invented or created Hamas, and that he purposefully funds them and keeps and supports them.
It's not personally. We know that Israel is allowing Qatar to enter money into the Gaza Strip. It's not a secret. We are allowing money to go into the Gaza Strip, and we know that Hamas is the one taking the money, and instead of building schools and hospitals and creating a successful country, they are building a tunnel city underneath Gaza where the terrorists live, where our hostages are currently.
Well, there's a video going around, I think,
Yes.
of Benjamin Netanyahu from maybe 10 years ago or
Yes.
something, where it's sort of a candid video, and he's admittedly saying that Hamas is good for
Yes.
his causes, good for his
Yes.
plans.
Yes.
So people are now passing this around and using it, saying, look, the Israeli government is supporting them on purpose to enable an ongoing conflict. What do you think?
I think that as I was saying, like this status quo that there is a threat over Israel.
Yeah.
And Netanyahu, he said it in an interview, and you can find it online, that he wants to be remembered as the protector of Israel. You cannot be a protector if there's not a threat.
Yeah.
But Hamas is a dangerous organization, and they are emerged within the civilian population in such an extent that it's impossible to take down the infrastructure of Hamas without hurting civilians. This is why this war is so terrible. So, as a prime minister, you must take brave decisions, and I do not think that Netanyahu is a brave man. I think that he's conniving and manipulative, and for that you need to be some sort of intelligent, right? Because in order to manipulate the truth and make people believe you and to get them to follow you, then there must be something intelligent in there, right? So I think that he's a dangerous man, that because he's allowing such a threat to grow under our noses and not take it down once and for all.
But do you think that he actually, somewhere deep down in his heart, soul, whatever, do you think he actually has true care and true desire to protect Israel? Or do you think he does everything for some bad motive?
He's a person that his relationship to the truth is so weird, is so bizarre, to an extent that maybe he does believe that he's protecting Israel.
Do you think that he just might be privy to some information that most people are not, that the people don't know? Maybe he and his closest advisors, they know things, they know intelligence.
Many people know intelligence that I don't know. I said it before. I'm a teacher, I'm a poet, I'm a breastfeeding consultant. I chose professions that are very
like
far from
a hippie to me.
I might be. I chose professions that are very far away from the military and politics and, let's say, everything that it takes to manage a war.
Unfortunately, too, because when we met, you were in the army, and that was the coolest thing about you.
But I was a teacher in the army. I was teaching Hebrew to students from the former Russian Union that immigrated to Israel.
That was like my dream for so long, was to date a Israeli army girl. And
I helped you achieve your dreams. But I honestly think that he's a dangerous person, because I think that
but is he
his
doing
profession is to be the prime minister of Israel, and then this thing happens, and he does not take responsibility.
But is he doing it out of true belief that he's protecting the nation?
He does.
Maybe he's dangerous.
I'll tell you another thing. For a few years now, when he's talking to the press, he does not allow the Israeli press to ask him any questions. How come in our most desperate time there isn't a press conference in which we can ask our prime minister the difficult questions that we must ask? He is dissociating himself from the public.
I think that's common. Our president doesn't even know where he's at half the time, and he has some crazy lady speak for him. So, I don't know. Put it this way: at least Israel does have a intelligent, capable, whether it be for the right means or not, but capable, intelligent, articulate person in charge. Okay.
But he's not taking care of my interests. He's not keeping me safe. He's allowing Qatar money to enter the Gaza Strip, and now there's a war, and I had to take my son out of the country, and I'm terrified and worried about all my friends and families and relatives and everybody that I know that is left there. You know, luckily for us, Israel is a country strong enough, so this is threatening our safety, but not our existence. But this is because we are a strong country, and it's not because of Netanyahu.
Well, I think I don't really have a horse in the race, but I think he does the best that he's capable of doing. Do you think that if there wasn't,
which means that he's incapable?
No. Do you think if there wasn't so much international outrage over how Israel handles Gaza, do you think if he was truly able to, he would just go in and
what, the infiltration into Gaza?
No, do you think Netanyahu would go into Gaza and just wipe it clean?
No.
If he was allowed to, or do you think he would actually try?
No, he had the possibility to do that for years, and he chose not to. You know, whenever things would hit with the Hamas, that call to enter Gaza would always be heard, and he would really try to avoid that. And now we are almost 3 weeks into the most difficult war that we have ever been to, the most tragic attack to Jewish people since the Holocaust, and we still do not enter the Gaza Strip. And I think that there are many reasons not to do that. I think that some of them are known to the public. I think some of them are not known to the public. For me, what I must say is that what's most important for me is that the hostages to come back home. And as far as I'm concerned, after all the hostages are home, then we can talk about what to do with Hamas. But there are hundreds of civilians, including the elderly and children and babies, that are under a terrorist organization right now.
One thing that I think it was maybe 2 or 3 days after the attack, a friend of mine that I was with, he asked how they would handle the hostages, and my first response was that I think most Israelis sort of know or raised with the idea that everyone is. I think every Israeli is willing to die for Israel. As simple as that. And I think that most people sort of know in the back of their minds that when it comes down to it, if need be, to get rid of Hamas, that they will be sacrificed in the process. And that was my first remark about that.
I think that there's a difference between being a soldier and being a civilian.
But do you think that there's going to be an effort to... How far do you think the Israeli government's going to go before they finally just say,
I am afraid that they will not go far enough to release the hostages alive. I have dear friends that their family members are being held hostage in Gaza, and they are handling it by themselves, which is an awful thing, in my opinion. That the people feel that the government isn't helping them enough with this, that they're not receiving enough information, that they're not being asked. I think that must be taken into account, and I understand what you mean, that because we live in a dangerous place, Israelis are kind of embedded with the idea that we are willing to die
But
for something.
that is something that most other countries, the people, they don't really have that in the back of their head. And I think the Israelis do.
I think that we have the danger of death in the back of our heads, but in my personal experience, I feel like it's making me a stronger advocate for peace, because I do not want anybody to die. I believe that life are lived in order to live, right? Not in order to die. And I do not think that any 9-month-old baby or 3-year-old girl or an elderly or a mother that was taken with her kids into the Gaza Strip, I don't want them to die for anything. I want my government. Why do we have such a strong government and army and country if not to save lives?
And see,
isn't this why we're so strong, to save lives?
It is, but I would say you give a very feminine point of view on that, a very caring, nurturing point of view, and that is.
I wish women ran wars.
No, but that's no. Well, see, my logical. This is granted, I'm not in charge of anything, but I think many. There are many people in the Israeli and American military who would say logically, how many hostages are left? 200, 300, something?
Now they are talking about 212, I think, is the current number, but it keeps changing. The problem is also there's lots of people missing and many bodies that were corrupted. Can you say corrupt on something physical? Abused,
disfigured
in such a way that we are struggling with identifying them. So there's a lot of people missing, and we do not know yet if they were abducted or not. Right now, the number is 212.
And see,
people abducted.
Logically,
yes,
212 would just be collateral damage to get rid of Hamas.
I hate the term collateral damage. I think it's a word man made up to go to sleep peacefully.
Of course it is. Of course it is. Drone operators have to be able to go back to their house at the end of the shift, so they don't bomb parties.
I am not a drone.
Point being that the way you explained that was a very feminine, nurturing, caring point of view, and I think there are people probably in the Israeli military who are in charge of things that will say, that are probably right now advocating, saying, go ahead, alert the families because we're going to bomb these buildings, so and so. We know there's 20 hostages, but there's 200 Hamas members.
I wanna say something about that. Yeah. He was released about 10 years ago. Gilad Shalit was a soldier that was abducted.
Yeah. Was he the one
from the Gaza Strip
that Homeland was made about? The series?
Did they do a show about him?
I think so.
Maybe.
Yeah.
He was under Hamas captivity for 5 years. He was a soldier. He was abducted from a tank. His crew died, and he was abducted. And they negotiated about bringing him back for 5 years. And at the beginning, the deal that Hamas offered was relatively a good deal. And at the end, after 5 years, they released 1,000 prisoners of Hamas from the Israeli prison.
For one tank.
For one soldier, not civilian, one soldier, they released 1,000 people. And before that, we had Moshe Tenenbaum, who got abducted into Gaza while trying to commit a drug deal. And
in Gaza.
In Gaza.
What? Honestly, leave him. That's really,
and also
that's
there
stupid.
Was like an intelligence thing there. It was for all the wrong reasons when he wasn't abducted, but they released him as well for some prisoners of Hamas that were in the Israeli prison. So I think that at the end of the day, we would pay a price, and I feel like releasing prisoners is the price that I feel like, what do we have them in prison for? My taxes, my money is paying for terrorists who are sitting in Israeli prisons. I don't give a fuck if they go back to the Gaza Strip. I want my civilians back.
Is that a known number? Does the everyday person, do you know how many Hamas?
How many prisoners?
Yeah, how many Hamas members are in
I think
Israeli
that now
prison?
it really changed because so many were caught. So many were caught right now during this war. They were managed to stay within Israeli territories for days without water or food because they were given amphetamines.
Amphetamines.
Amphetamines. Just like the Nazis, by the way, who were also who also got amphetamines. But we heard about terrorists still being caught in Israeli territories, like 10th of October, 11th of October. It's like, what the fuck? How come they're still alive? They have no food, they have no water. It's still really hot in Israel. There's 30 degrees Celsius today.
Could you not use, could the government not use all of the Hamas members that they have in prison right now as sort of, like you said, collateral for the hostages? But
I believe that they could look negotiating for hostages. It's like a profession by itself, right? I do not have nor the knowledge or the experience to really know what we can or can't do, but I can look at my country's history and see what we already did and what kind of deals were considered successful and non-successful.
But do you think that's a zero-sum game? Because, I think Hamas members, dying a martyr is for them almost better than being taken back.
They believe that if they die, they go to heaven and wonderful things happen to them.
But their family gets more money if they die.
Yes, I find it tragic. You have recordings of Hamas terrorists calling from phones of Israelis that
was disgusting.
Murdered and saying, Mom, Dad, I killed 10 Israelis from my own hands. I'm calling from an Israeli phone, and they say, God bless you. As a mother, I think that I cannot understand that.
That was disgusting.
I cannot understand that.
At what point do you think that what's happening in Gaza will start to bleed into the West Bank and the Golan Heights, and even, in a worst case scenario, Jordan, Lebanon, Syria, Egypt?
Yes.
What has to happen for them for it to expand, for the war to expand beyond just Gaza?
Well, I'll say first and foremost, I don't know if your followers really.
My followers are retarded. They don't know anything, so talk to them like babies, please.
Okay, so first of all, the West Bank, there's parts of the West Bank that has the Palestinian Authority, and there are parts that are occupied by the Israeli IDF.
Yeah, they know nothing about the zones.
So I think that in the ABC territories or under the Palestinian Authority, I think that it's more about like individuals. Obviously, the terror organizations have cells there and activists, and Israel is every day arresting terrorists over there.
Does the PA, do they harbor Hamas at all? Do they cooperate with them in any way, or?
I do not know to what extent they cooperate, because let's say that the PA did not condone Hamas's actions. There was like a peace committee in Egypt about a week or two ago, and they did not leave with any agreements because the Arab representatives there did not condone Hamas actions. So they could not agree on anything. So that committee, some might say that it was unsuccessful because they could not agree eventually. Yeah. So the PA, they're obviously not Hamas. They're not a terrorist organization, but they are our neighbors. And if we are looking forward into the future, right, the future in which Palestinians and Israelis can coexist, they are our neighbors. So I think that they are in a very difficult position in which they need to protect Palestinian interests, but also to be able to condemn Hamas.
Is that something that's visible?
For Israelis, it's vital.
But is that something that's visible right now, sort of in the media, that is the Palestinian Authority? Are they being very vocal? Are they being clear that they're working with the Israeli government, or
they're not working with the Israeli government?
Cooperating, maybe? Is that a better word, or?
No, not really. Not really. They're not cooperating right now. I must say, to me, that's unfortunate, because I do not see a future where we all live together unless we choose to live together. And for that, we must be able to talk throughout the disagreements. There's an expression that says that you make peace with your enemies. So,
It's a very basic.
right? But people are saying, like, you cannot, they're not people to talk to. But I'm like, yeah, but I can make peace only with somebody who's my enemy. So, eventually we would have to talk. Regarding like the northern parts of Israel, so there is Lebanon and there's Syria, and the Hezbollah is working in Lebanon, and they are actually like firing missiles at us from there, and the IDF is responding very locally, very surgically. They are locating the squads of terrorists that are launching the rockets and targeting them specifically.
Isn't that didn't they hit Haifa a couple days ago?
They did not hit Haifa. There were like there was a talk about like some sort of drone infiltration.
Something.
And it was like 2 weeks ago, but it's like a lifetime
Yeah,
ago. I don't even remember what has happened there, but all the time things are happening in the north. The question is like, when will Hezbollah jump? People think that if Israel will infiltrate Gaza by foot, then other people might jump in. That they are waiting for the cue, and the cue will be the infiltration. So that could be the thing that sets everything on fire. I think that also Hamas is trying sometimes to get it to happen, like what happened with the hospital, where a misfire of the jihadic Islam, unfortunately, landed at a hospital, and then they immediately said it was Israel, and everybody believed them, although we were proving over and over for days that this was not an Israeli bombing. So
that was a perfect example of how people are so rabid just to believe without question what they want to believe. Immediately, as soon as something pops up that supports your side, it's almost like the world is watching a soccer match right now, and it's just back and forth, back and forth. And the moment there's some action, people are ready to cheer and ready to stand up and applaud.
Yes.
And then the moment the ball goes the other way, they start booing. And it's become a sport. This whole thing is a sport for the world to just sit back and watch.
That's true, but I really wish that the Arab countries will actually advocate for the Palestinians, because Hamas is not really allowing Palestinians to live a successful life, to build a great economy.
The only people that hate Palestinians more than Israelis is other Arabs. That's not a secret. Everybody knows this. Everybody in the Middle East uses Palestinians as a show pony, as a trick to just get what they want, to keep the people in their country angry about Israel, angry against the Jews. The Palestinians are a necessary cause for the entire region, but nobody helps them, nobody feeds them, nobody tries to do anything. It's quite disgusting, and I think it's been
the fact that the world is expecting Israel to take responsibility over Palestinians is rather ridiculous. We take responsibility over the Palestinians within our territories. Some of them do not agree with the Israeli government, which I can fully understand, and some of them, they serve in the IDF or the police.
One thing I want you to clarify, because I know a lot of people will say this, and I know friends of mine pretty close that will constantly bring this up, where they say Israel has a two-tiered justice system, that Palestinians who live in Israel are treated legally different. And from what I know, I don't think this is true, that if you're an Israeli citizen, whether you be Arab or Muslim or Druze or whatever, if you're an Israeli citizen, you have the same protections, you have the same rights, the same, I believe, that's the problem. Yeah. You can't call them Palestinian if they have an Israeli passport. They might be Arab.
They have friends that identify as Palestinians.
But they Israeli Palestinians. Let's use that word, because they are citizens of Israel. Okay. Correct?
We do not have to.
Everybody's equal under the law.
Under the law, everybody's equal. I would say that
socially, it's probably different.
And we have a few, let's say, types of education systems. They're all under the Ministry of Education, and you have like the secular education and religious education, and you have Arab education. And I don't think that it's a bad thing, because I think that Arabic speaking children and youth should grow into an education system that literally speaks their language and addresses their needs. But they are also studying, being qualified to like what we have as SATs, and they are learning in universities, working at hospitals.
Is this something that's mandatory, or they can decide either way?
What?
If you're an Arab Israeli, you're forced to go to an Arab school, or you can choose to
No,
go
this
to.
is like your school system. You know
But they can choose to go to like a secular school.
We live in Jaffa, which is a mixed city, and like I sent for kindergarten my son to like a state kindergarten that was for the Jewish circular population, but he had an Arab kindergartner, two of them, and many of the pupils in the kindergarten were Arabs.
So
they were studying together.
They can join in the secular
yes,
schools.
And now we sent him to a bilingual school, a school that is like a partnership of Jewish people and Arab people, and my son is studying in two languages.
What is
That's our choice.
This is a completely side thing.
I just want to say though that Israel, like every other place in the world, there is racism in Israel, and this is a problem, right? And if you have somebody racist who's in the position of decision making and power over civilians, it will affect the reality. But you know, even in the US, let's say black people are affected by racism, but it's not like there is another system just for the blacks. It's not like a separated and equal thing.
It used to be that way.
It used to be, but now it's not. But there are still racist people in the U.S. And obviously, like when the police, you know, is looking for somebody suspect, they will first and foremost will look at a black person, right? Yeah. Racism is not something unique to Israel.
No,
it's something that belongs to mankind. And I really want for Israel to be a peaceful place. So also we can, I don't know if you can defeat racism, but at least like monitor it, and that it would not eat us alive from the inside, because it's a horrible thing.
See, this is again the way you explain this. You want peace, you know, you want everything to be great and wonderful. That is a very you perspective. Me, on the other hand, I'm quite the negative Nancy. You know, I'm a nihilist.
Why negative though?
Because
why is it a negative thing?
No, I truly think that there's no possibility to be peaceful with a group of people who, from birth, are taught to hate you and to dance on your death.
I don't know if I can make peace with terrorists, but there are Palestinians who are not terrorists.
Yeah, of course.
And with them, I can make peace.
Why? You think that?
Why do you? I'm really interested in why do you?
I just don't think it's possible. I think that there's an inherent cultural difference. There's an inherent disagreement, and it's incompatibility between two people. And this isn't a new thing. I mean, Jews and Muslims have been killing each other in the Holy Land for 1,500 years.
But that's just like.
It's not going to change because...
I do not agree with that. You know, up until... I don't recall exactly when, after Israel was established, but for many years, Jewish people lived peacefully in Arab countries.
Yeah,
at a certain point in history, something flipped, you know, like in Iraq, and then they couldn't live there anymore, and they came to Israel. But up until that point, for hundreds of years, Jewish people lived peacefully in Iraq and in Morocco and in Algeria. You know, I think that we have like short term when it comes to history, and we also, as humans, we give greater weight to the tragedies. So we remember the conflicts better than we remember peace. But I don't know, like France and England have been enemies for centuries, and now you can just take the bus from Paris to London.
Not anymore.
Why not?
Because England wised up and got out of the EU.
It got out of the EU,
And
but
rightfully
I mean,
so.
you can still.
The French suck. I don't even know
I'm
why
not
we moved
saying.
there.
I'm not saying that. I don't know. It's not my problem.
No,
We're in
I
the
know.
Eurovision. That's good enough. But what I'm saying is that they are not at war anymore, and that war seems like
Unfortunately,
that war seems like science fiction now.
it was up to
Right?
me.
Up until 70 years ago, all of Europe was mashed in an awful war, and now there's open borders.
Do you know whose fault that was?
The Nazis.
The Jews.
What I'm saying is that
maybe that's when it flipped.
I'm just thinking that there is a time when.
But
I mean, I
let's
think
think
that
of it like
eventually
that.
there will be peace.
Do you think there was nice, liberal-minded, poetic teachers in Nazi Germany who were saying we can be peaceful, we can be friends with these people, we can be friends with the Nazis at some point.
I don't know what's the Nazi idea of peace is like the Third Reich.
No. A Jewish woman in Germany, she was saying what you're saying. We can make peace with the Germans who aren't Nazis. Not all of them are Nazis.
There were Jewish people who stayed in Germany up until September 1st, 1939, and they ate shit.
And then they got a one-way ticket to Poland, didn't they?
That's my family. But, I'm talking about the Holocaust, there are similarities, there are things that are not similar. I do not live under Nazi regime. There are terrorists with Nazi ideology.
But would you say
to kill me? But not all Germans were Nazi, and I think that not all Palestinians are terrorists. My son, he has Arab teachers. He has Arab students that they're friends with. I have Arab and Palestinian friends, and I think that humans have conflicts. Right? Family members have difficult, hardcore conflicts about money and property or whatnot. And it's you can choose to have dirty, violent fights, and you cannot. I'm not saying that you can necessarily make that choice with a terrorist organization. I do not think that, I could make peace with Hamas. But I am saying that, you asked me at the beginning, I'll ask you, how does it end? Right? And I think that this is what this question is actually about, right? How does it end? My opinion is that military solution is not a long-term solution. It can end a very specific problem at this moment, right? The Hamas threat. But let's say that Hamas is not a threat anymore. Somebody has to take responsibility over the Palestinian people. They must self-govern in a way that is not violent and peaceful, and that will actually allow the Palestinians to live, because I do not know what kind of life it is to live under a terrorist organization. And I do not want to know.
You're talking about how, your son has Arab teacher, you have Arab friends, you live in an Arab neighborhood. What do the Arabs, especially in Tel Aviv, these are Israeli people, I think a lot of people have a misconception that Arabs who live in Israel are sort of in their own little world, but all of them speaking Hebrew. Most of them speaking decent English. It's a very metropolitan city. What do they think of this right now? Is it visible? Are they walking in the streets with Palestinian flags? Or are they understanding, the problems?
People are heartbroken. Arab people are heartbroken too. I think that they're in a very difficult position because what they saw is scary. They saw it the same. When there's an alarm that rockets are fired at us, they go to the safe rooms too, right? The rocket doesn't know what language do you speak to your mother.
Of course.
So they are very afraid, and I think that they're in a very difficult position because, when you speak Arabic in a public space, it makes people scared. That makes me really sad. I think that a great gift that I'm giving my son is that when this war will be over, he will not be afraid when he hears Arabic because he speaks it and he hears it every day. So there are many Arab people that are heartbroken. There was a bicycle shop of an Arab man in Taipei. It's an Arab city in Israel, and he donated bicycles for the children from the kibbutzim who were evacuated.
Yeah.
There are Arab people, that they work shoulder to shoulder with nurses and doctors, in hospitals every day. There is partnership. People are afraid. People are scared. There are also people, they are helping out as well. I think that it's very different also. Like, are you an Arab that is living amongst Jewish people or not? Like our building, I have Arab neighbors and we are on good terms, and yeah.
I wanted to ask also,
Yes.
what is, because the big thing that was happening this time last year was the African situation. That was, I think, the last time I saw you out protesting with your sister was, I think, for the Africans. Like you were doing something, all the Eritreans and all the Ethiopians.
Yeah.
You were protesting you were pro them, get them better health care and accessibility into the system and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that a couple of months ago, the government was talking about mass deportation of a lot of them.
What has happened?
What's happened with them? Where do they fit into this?
You're talking about the Eritrea?
Yeah, just all the immigrants, the African immigrants that have come in.
Well, African immigrants. We have people from Sudan and from Eritrea. What has happened was, for a long time, we have a big border with Egypt, and it was not monitored very well. So for many years, lots of refugees from Africa came to Israel, and now we have.
Can I quickly tell you?
Yes.
One time, it wasn't the last time, but one time I came to visit you, and I had went out and I was staying with some friends way out in the I don't even know where. But there was this African guy there, and nicest, coolest guy I ever met. He looked like he could kill a man with his bare teeth. And he told me a story. His name was Toby. He told me a story. He was from Chad, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And he said he spent 3.5 years walking.
Yes.
To Israel.
Yes.
From Chad. And he said that at some point he was in a child soldier army when he was a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
That he killed his mother. That's why they made him join him and his brother. They made him join the thing. He left when he was 16, walked 3.5 years, got to Israel. Of course, he told me the whole trials and tribulations. He was stopped. He went to a jail for months at a time. But after 3.5 years of journey, ended in Israel. And I asked him, I was like, why Israel? Why'd you come here? And he was like, because there was nowhere to go. The only thing he knew was go to Israel. He ended up there. But he was the nicest guy ever. But you could tell that man had seen things that the mind can't comprehend. So.
Yeah, so we have African refugees, and it's a hot topic in Israel because, they entered illegally, but it was like, it's a fuck up, right? A state is supposed to protect its borders, not to have tens of thousands of immigrants coming in. But
tell that to America.
Yeah, I feel, I wish Israel, to be a safe space for everybody looking for sanctuary. I think that a strong democracy is not defined by how ethnic it is, but how much freedom it provides to the different ethnicities within it. So I wish for any refugee that comes to Israel to find peace. What has happened was that, there was a lot of buzz because, like, Eritrea...
Actually, here in The Hague, there's a lot of Eritreans. A lot of them.
They're everywhere. They're fleeing their country. They're getting to everywhere they can. But the Eritrea consuls throughout the world, they are creating these like celebrations for Eritrea, and there are people fleeing from the country. So it creates turmoilation within the Eritrea community. I know that also in Europe there were riots of like
Yeah.
pro regime Eritreans and people who were against it. So
I have a lot of Eritrean friends here, and they all the same story. You know, they all.
It was the same story everywhere, and representatives from the community addressed the police and the municipality of Tel Aviv and whoever they could to prevent this event, because they knew it's in Hebrew you say flammable, right?
Yeah, it's flammable.
It's
It will
explosive,
ignite.
this
It will
event.
ignite. Yeah.
So there were riots about that, but what I want to say is that as soon as the attack happened in October 7th, all the civilians in Israel, started donating food and collecting clothes and shipping everywhere, including Eritreans, refugees.
Yeah.
They just showed up. These people are poorer than poor Israelis, right? And they just showed up with food and donations and doing whatever they can. It was a beautiful moment of
So they're
solidarity.
really choosing a side. There's no
No,
delineation between.
I think that the Israeli government can treat them very poorly, but they understand terror
Yeah.
as much as we do, because they escaped terror. So they know evil when they see it. And I know that you think that my use of the word evil is not like Gen Z enough.
I don't get it.
But they recognize the horror, and they work with us. They live with us.
Do you think this is a moment for them to sort of carve out their identity in Israel? Do you think if the war expands a bit and they truly show that
what?
that they're helpful, that they're making the best effort to assist?
Are you asking me if they should be citizens?
No, yeah. Is this a moment where the immigrant the whole community can carve out a real identity in 20 years and 30 years, whenever every Eritrean has Israeli passport?
I hope so. Look, in Hebrew the word break and crisis are very similar. They have the same root. It's like shever, something that breaks, and mashber, which is a crisis. And I always say that the difference between shever and mashber is that a crisis is an opportunity to change. It's an opportunity to growth. And this is a terrible war. It's the worst thing that has happened to us. We are heartbroken, but I really hope that as a nation
the Holocaust was pretty bad.
Yeah, but also we came out of the Holocaust stronger and more united, and with clearer goals about how we want to live in the world.
And with a country that seemed to start all this nonsense.
With the country also.
No,
and I really hope that Israel as a nation will come out of it stronger. And yes, people at the moment of crisis, they did not care at that moment if they received the citizenship or not.
Yeah.
They wanted to help, and I really hope that the Israeli government will look at this later and will say, okay, those people, we want them as citizens. Yeah. We have everything to gain.
That's what I think
from them being citizens. I want to say that I think that something that sometimes is taking a major part in Israeli government decision making. They are afraid for the future of the Jewish people, and then they make it a numbers game. How many Jewish people there are here? How many Arab people there are here? How many refugees came in? They are afraid that there will be not enough Jewish people in Israel. They are afraid.
Isn't that one of the big talking points from the government, is that the Arab population is growing much faster than the Jewish population, or the Israeli population?
It is a talk that's happening, but I think that I've said it in this talk before, is that I think that a strong democracy is a democracy that can protect itself, protect its civilians, and you do not need to play favors.
Disclaimer, I am not pro-democracy. I do not support democracy. I'm a monarchist. So. Let's
It's
get
a
that
bit
out of the
late
way.
for you as an American to support monarchy, but
I have a king.
I think that a strong democracy is its inability to provide protection and rights to its civilians. So I move away from the numbers game because I think that if we live peacefully, we will live successfully. I think that once the government makes us think that we are each other's enemy and we fight within ourselves, that's when we lose.
Yeah.
Like
But that,
religious Jewish people, like Haredim, they're not my enemies. Arab people or Palestinian people, they're not my enemies. And African refugees, they're not my enemies. People who inflict terror, yeah, they're my enemies. I cannot make a conversation with somebody that burns babies.
I think a lot of people, yeah, just anybody outside of Israel doesn't quite understand the divide between secular people like yourself and the Orthodox, the
Yes.
Hasidim.
Yes.
They don't understand that. I think the mentality a lot in America, because most people in New York City, the only Jews they know are the Penguins. They know the Orthodox. They
Yeah,
walk around.
Orthodox Jews.
They walk around. They got the curls, the big fluffy hat, and that's their image. That's what they
It's an
associate.
iconic image, I gotta say.
But that's what they associate. And I swear, if you asked a random person on the street in New York, they think that that's what Israel is. 8 million penguins flocking around, just causing havoc.
When you came to Israel, you saw the hotties and the hotties.
I know, see, but I don't. A lot of people don't realize that it is just real people, and they also don't realize that people like yourself, the majority of Israelis, think that those super religious Israelis are mostly crazy. Like everybody.
Fanatics are crazy. You can be religious and not fanatics. The Orthodox Jews, they have such a distinctive look. Those are communities from Western Europe.
Yeah.
Okay, and they were really closed and gated communities, and they have this like lifestyle that they feel like they must protect. Okay, so I do not relate to that lifestyle
and isn't it that these are the Jews who are the anti-Zionists? They're the most anti-state, anti-Israel, where they believe that
because they see themselves as Jewish and not as Israeli.
Yeah.
And they might say, that they are anti-Zionist and against the state, but they will, some of them, not all of them, but they will go and vote to have their representatives in the Israeli parliament.
Isn't it as well that that's a big political thing where they refuse to join the army? And
Yes.
Yeah, I remember that always being
yes,
an argument.
It is an argument. I think that maybe your followers don't know, but in Israel, recruiting to the army is mandatory.
Yeah.
Unless you're Arab and you can volunteer, and unless you're Orthodox Jew, and then you can volunteer. But when I was 17, I got the notice that I must be drafted, and my son, he's 6 years old. He knows that he will be drafted. It's like, this is what happens in Israel. Everybody joins the army. It became mandatory because when Israel was founded in 1948, there were not enough people, right? We needed everybody.
Yeah.
Now Israel is really big, and it's really easy to be discharged from the army. You go to the military psychologist and you say something and they let you out. It's really easy. It wasn't as easy before. It's because we have lots of people. And in my opinion, I wish that Israel would move to be a more professional army, because if you have enough people, you can choose the best people.
Yeah.
And make the jobs better, because you must give jobs to everybody.
Ditch diggers.
But I feel like, you've listened to my opinions already. They shouldn't have given me a gun.
Your job when I met you, we were cooking pita bread for like kids at a school, and you were like, "Yes, I'm working in the army."
Because there's like the education force in the army, and I was in the education force, and it started in the 1950s because, Israel like doubled and tripled its population because of the immigration when it was founded, and lots of people immigrated to Israel from different places around the world. And
Lots of baby making too.
yeah, and their Hebrew wasn't fluent or not existent at all. So they had teacher soldiers that
People
would teach
also-
Hebrew.
I think people don't realize as well that modern Hebrew is a created language. It was
Yes.
created. I mean, you have so many words that are English, French, Spanish, and then,
Yeah, because there were also like different methods and ideologies about like how to make the Hebrew language alive again, because it was only used in the Bible, in the scripts,
Yeah.
in the scriptures. So it had to be reinvented. They invented the camera, they invented the plane, but in the Bible we
There's no
didn't have
word,
a
yeah,
camera
there's no
and we
word.
didn't have
What-
a plane, so we had to make up those words.
Are there any word? This is completely off topic, but
Yeah.
are there any like everyday words that you use that literally make no sense to you? Like
In the Hebrew language?
yeah, like I don't know, just a word for like I think in Welsh they call like a microwave a pippity poppity machine. Like is it just some strange word that you're just like, why did we pick that?
Wow, this is so like specific, but like the word for clitoris is like
Clitoris. Let's try that
clitoris.
again.
Sorry, clitoris.
Come on, feminist. You're supposed to know this.
It's
Which
like
doesn't exist, by the
it's
way.
like
I don't know if you people know this. The
It says,
clitoris
like-
is a myth.
tickly.
Tickly?
It's something that says like tickly. It's called dagdagan. It's like from the verb of to tickle, ledagdeg.
Tickle clit. There we go.
Yeah,
See?
so I think that it's like
A woman definitely made that word. That was gold in my ear. She
yeah.
did that.
So I think that I don't know. This word is absurd, and there's like also a bird that has the same name as a penis. Like a penis in Hebrew, you say like bulbul, and there's a bird that's also called bulbul. I don't know why I immediately went to genitalia.
I thought
That specific topic.
that was like one of the first things that somebody tricked me with. They were like, go up to a girl at a bar and say, Nishekle design. Like,
Zain is like a dick.
yeah,
It's
like Nishekle design. And I walked up to a chick and I said that. And then she was just like, go away.
oh, but you know what? It's really interesting. Like, dick, Zain comes from like the word like
The letter, yeah.
it's also the letter, but it comes from like klizain, which means like a weapon, and like the verb to fuck is to lezayem.
Fuck yeah. Fuck yeah.
Of course, you militant really adore it. The Hebrew language is like it's so weird. I think that the weirdest thing is that there's like the Hebrew Academy, and they try to make international words just like words in Hebrew, but it doesn't apply. Like there's
Yeah.
internet, right? Everybody says internet, and they call it marshetet, which is like a kind of a web.
Yeah.
Like nobody says that.
Remember the first time I was there, I heard somebody say Wi-Fi instead of
Wi-Fi.
Wi-Fi. I thought he was. I
No,
thought he
we
had
say Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi is the French people say Wi-Fi.
No. I heard so many people saying Wi-Fi. I was like, what is
Maybe
wrong
because
with
it
you
was
people?
new at the time, but Wi-Fi is actually how the French people say Wi-Fi.
It's stupid.
It
They go,
is.
Yeah, see, another reason why the British should go to war with the French. They're fucking retarded. Anyway,
Yeah.
I want to get to some conspiracies. My favorite thing in the world.
Conspiracies, yeah.
Yes. So, do the Jews run the banks?
If they do, nobody told me.
No, the one thing a lot of people are using as a propaganda weapon at the moment is this this idea that, well, it's not an idea. It is true that a lot of politicians in Washington and a lot of members of the president's cabinet and secretaries are either Jewish or have dual citizenship. Now, a lot of people will say that that is evidence of Israeli control and manipulation over America, over Washington, D.C. What do you think about that? Do you think it's true? Do you think it's a good thing? Do you think it's a bad thing? Do you think people just need to chill out? But whether
I've heard that when you look at it like ethnically, the majority of Nobel Prize winners are Jewish as well.
So that's another Jewish conspiracy.
Look, people make listing of Jews is too familiar. It's too Nazi. It's too anti-Semitic. I think this act of making a list of Jewish people in places, that by itself as an act, I think, should ring a bell. You started looking up the Jews. Okay? Why? Why does it bother you that there are Jewish people where decisions are being made? Maybe it's because we are, very determined people, intelligent people, and it's important for us to be where decisions are being made because we know that if we're not there, we will be executed. I mean, I don't know, you could say it's a conspiracy. Nobody told me, that all the Jewish people go to politics. Maybe I should go next to DC and run something from there. But
Runs in your family.
It runs in the family. Jewish people, when you look at it worldwide, they are successful people, and I think that it comes from the fact that we are very resilient. We are very much resilient people. We are the high-tech nation.
I don't think people realize how much.
Yeah, we invented the USB. We invented the Wi-Fi. We invented cherry tomatoes.
Cherry tomatoes?
The tiny tomatoes that are like this. It's an Israeli invention.
How do you invent a tomato?
We made them small. No, because, Jewish people for hundreds of years, they did not do physical work. We were not working in agriculture, and then
you see how frail you are?
I am extremely frail, but when they decided that they want a country and we have to work at it, we're like, okay, we need to do agriculture work, and there are many agriculture inventions.
Let's make the tomatoes smaller so they're easier to pick.
And they're delicious.
That's the most
cute.
Jewish thing ever.
So, people don't understand that many of the technologies that they're using are Israeli inventions. We are ahead of everybody in like cyber and everything, and that's because we are being attacked. So we develop cyber and we develop networks of knowledge. This is why there's Wi-Fi or USB.
That's
Jewish
another
people. They're very resilient, and I think that people look at it from the side, and it could be intimidating because you see, wow, there's like how many 15 million Jews worldwide, and you see them in banks, and you see them in politics, and you see them as actors, right? We are neurotic as fuck, and what do? We make the best comedy. Maybe. We make the best comedy, and we're really neurotic, and we just make it really funny, and we're successful at it. And I can understand, people looking at the side of it and being, that's suspicious. I think that's just like, being afraid of something that
But this is a weapon that I see, a propaganda weapon that is being used right now.
And it's a Nazi thing.
But it's not just memes being passed around. There's a whole group within the government, within the American government, who are passing around these lists, I guess, if you will, of people who they're attempting to correlate their religion, or maybe the fact that they have a second passport, trying to say that they are less than. And funnily enough, the people who are passing this around the most also have second passports, but of Palestine, of Egypt, of Somalia. And
what does a Palestinian passport look like?
Well, they're Palestinian. They have the little book. They say they're Palestinian.
No, I'm not saying that they're not Palestinian, but there's no Palestinian state.
I use the word passport to mean citizen.
Okay, citizen. Yeah. Okay. Listen.
But they're passing
I just think that the act of making lists, it's like it's a Nazi thing, and you say it's propaganda. What allowed so many Germans become Nazi and exterminate Jews? Propaganda. Okay, people are now using this like freedom of speech as a tool to allow them to be hateful. But
hold on. You don't like freedom of speech now?
No, I do like freedom of speech.
There's a reason that's the First Amendment. It's the most important.
Know.
The most important.
I think that freedom of speech is a very important thing, but I think that as democracies must protect themselves. I think that the freedom of speech should have limits. And I know that for Americans, it can be something very difficult to comprehend. But as somebody who's living in a very divided country, propaganda against the Oslo agreements, it led to the murder of our former Prime Minister, Yitzhak Rabin. It can tear a society down, and we see it in the Western world, how this like propaganda that is pro-Hamas, that is pro-terror, it will take down the Western world. What do you think will happen if the Western world will be pro-terror? If people, if when 9/11 happened, they will be like, oh, those people who abducted the planes, they are freedom fighters.
Yeah,
they are being oppressed.
That's what blows my mind about this right now.
Those people jumping off the buildings, is it real? Maybe there was a mattress underneath. I don't know if it's real. Maybe it's Photoshop.
I mean,
that's the freedom of speech.
Yeah, well, that's probably what happened, but I don't know. I don't want to get too into the weeds about 9/11. We'll be here all year, but no, this is.
I don't know. It doesn't scare you. What would happen if the Western world was sympathetic of Al Qaeda 20 years ago?
In Amsterdam this week. Well, it happened a while back, but the guy, he just went to court and got found guilty this week. A guy projected onto the Anne Frank house just words that said that he thought that her diary was fake. That he put up some links to an analysis by a handwriting expert and by a historian, and he said basically it was just information saying, look, her diary was fake. Her father forged the diary, published it, and he projected it up onto the wall of the Anne Frank house. Mm-hmm. This guy's going to prison now.
Okay. I've never heard of it.
This just happened. It's very recent, but is that free speech? Should that be allowed? Did he harm anybody?
First of all, I think that, the Dutch society has its own rules of freedom of speech. I think that each society is determining for itself what is freedom of speech. Right now in Israel, they are starting to charge people who are supporting Hamas online.
Yeah.
They're pressing charges against them and starting to arrest them. So that's like Israeli society deciding what's Israeli freedom of speech limits. The Dutch people are to decide for themselves. Americans are to decide for themselves. And I do not feel like I can tell the Dutch people what their limits of freedom of speech should be. What you just said, it's painful to me, like physically, to hear that somebody is trying to prove that Anne Frank's experience wasn't real. We know that her father did edit the diary, it was his daughter's diary. Not everything that she wrote was published. He was protecting her privacy. Maybe he wanted to create a certain image of who his daughter was. I think that it makes sense, but I think to say that it wasn't real.
It does not help the situation at all, because I'm assuming you've been to the Anne Frank house before?
I have.
Yeah? Okay.
Many years ago, so I have.
When you go on the tour, they literally tell you this is not the Anne Frank house. This is not the real house. The real one is three buildings down.
Yeah.
We rebuilt a new we rebuilt that old one here in this building. That new one is now an apartment.
Yeah.
So the house itself does not exist anymore.
Yeah.
So that right there does not help the cause in any way about the theory that,
Well, maybe at 1945, when the war was over, shit was going down until they decided, okay, we need to make a museum about it.
Yeah. But
it's a reservation question. It's a museum question. Now I work in the Museum of Israel's National Poets, so... And the house is reserved and everything, so there is a question of ethnicity there. Obviously, in all museums that there are houses are.
Yeah.
The question of ethnicity there is a hot topic, but I never understood how people could deny the Holocaust or try to look proofs like it didn't happen or that it wasn't as bad as they showed.
I've met rabbis in Israel who are with basically Holocaust deniers.
I'm not saying that there aren't as well
No, yeah,
in Israel.
they're crazy,
Israel
but
is so diverse. People don't understand how many different people live in Israel. But I never understood how it can happen. And now, when we talk about the horrors that were found in the massacre scenes and people saying, well, you know, they beheaded babies, but not all babies
yeah,
were beheaded. So how real is it?
that's
And
nitpicking. That was
but I just feel like, oh my God, I'm and now I realize how can people deny the Holocaust. I could never understand it, and now I'm seeing it. And my family, you can tell by my skin color, we survived the Holocaust. And my great grandfather, he lived in Poland when World War II broke out, and he fought for the Polish army that one day when they managed to fight, and all of his units, they were shot to death, and he was hiding under a pile of corpses throughout the day, and he waited until it was nighttime, and he crawled under the dead bodies of his friend. The light of the German army, of the Nazi army, was moving left and right, and he was just like crawling, stopping, crawling, stopping, crawling, stopping, and he was able to be reunited with my great grandmother, and they escaped
sounds like the scariest
east.
game of flashlight tag I've ever
It
heard.
is. It is the scariest thing that has ever happened, and they fled to the east, and they had my grandmother, and she was born, and I'm always thinking how amazing it is that they brought life within that horrible war, and they couldn't raise her, so they put her in an orphanage, and they continued to escape, and they came back for her when the war was over, and after that they immigrated to Israel, and they built a life there. And we grew up with those stories. Jewish people, we are always forced to finish the food off our plates because we're afraid that we wouldn't have
Yeah,
any food. Whenever I leave the house, I have this like compulsive need to take a lot of shit with me.
to be
It's
ready.
like yeah, to get ready. It's like a generational trauma that is passing. And now I hear about children, that they hid in the safe room for hours under the bed, and they have PTSD, and they go to sleep under the bed. They're outside of the rocket zone, but they only feel safe under the bed, so they play there. Um, it's like this generational trauma is happening all over again, just in real time. And those things that were stories and they inspired me as like stories of my family, they are happening to my friends right now. Children hiding in attics, hiding in closets, those are like Holocaust images. And I'm sorry, I keep no, maybe I shouldn't be sorry, I keep circling back to that, but I think that I keep saying that because I do not see it being told enough in foreign media, and I know that you have American listeners, and I just want you to know that this is real. This is the wrong. It's the worst thing that has ever happened to us. Like, this is our nightmares, the nightmares that were passed from my great grandfathers to my grandmother, and from my grandmother to my mother, and from my mother to me. And this is the worst thing that has ever happened to us. And I just want you to know that it's real, and we are trying to fight terror that could inflict every one of us, because you should be sure that they will not stop with Israel. They will come to all of the Western world, and I think that this is what leaders of the Western world, they understand, because Israel, we're not used to getting that much support. But Biden is coming, and he's bringing troops, and I know you don't like Biden, and and all the leaders of like the West world are coming, the German and Czech and Dutch and French and British, everybody's coming. And I think that it's not a Jewish conspiracy. It's people understand that this threat is real. It's like a domino effect. There are other countries that are supporting terror, and they are willing to make Israel just the first step. And
But
I don't know
you,
what
you
is the nice way to fight for your life, but we are fighting for our lives. We have friends and family members and loved ones who are being held hostage, and we want them to be free.
but what do you think about President Biden
Hmm.
simultaneously giving money to Israel, but at the same time still supporting, still giving money to Hamas, still
Giving money or humanitarian aid?
Why? Either way you cut it, it's going to end up in Hamas's hands, and no one's stupid
Listen.
enough to think otherwise.
Listen, I think that, there are international laws of war, and we cannot not abide them. If we
All is
must.
fair in love and war.
I think that it's easy to say when you are not involved, but Israel, we need the back and the support of the Western world.
You got America
to fight for our lives, and if that means that we just check the trucks before they enter Gaza, if we are allowed to do so, to make sure that what they put in is gasoline for their generators and medicine and water and food. And if we can check that it's not weapon and they are providing humanitarian aid, that does not bother me. I do not want innocent people to suffer. I do not want them to be hurt. It's very unfortunate that under schools and hospitals there is Hamas infrastructure. There are weapons. They are launching rockets. That when they accidentally launch that rocket into a hospital, they launch the rockets from a cemetery. I understood.
Yeah.
These are things that we cannot fathom. There is a structure of underground tunnels in which Hamas is hiding, and they're allowing civilians to be hurt while infrastructure are being destroyed. And this is what happens, when they form a regime of terror. It's everywhere, and in order to take it down, the destruction is awful. I do not enjoy seeing people being hurt. I think maybe that's what people think of us, that we see destruction and we enjoy it, and I do not enjoy it. I want the Palestinian people to be free from Hamas, because how come a regime that cares for their people puts them in a situation like that? They do not protect them in the underground tunnels of Hamas. They do not let civilians in.
Of course not.
They do not let medical services in. They do not let children being protected there. They don't care.
What was the quote from Golda Meir, that there will only be peace whenever the Palestinians love their children as much as they hate us? And
she said that?
Yeah. That was one of her.
Always about
that was one of her most famous quotes. But
yeah,
I think that's something that now, again, you being, like I said, so left wing, so liberal, and me just thinking that anybody who thinks like you is most of the time crazy. It blows my mind how all these left wing liberal people are so in support of the most insanely atrocious things that could happen, but they have latched onto this cause.
Yeah.
But
Nazi
you gotta
thought,
explain it to me.
Nazis
These are your people. Explain it to me.
Nazi people thought that retarded people are making the Aryan race weaker, and they supported euthanasia, which means like mercy kill.
Yeah.
Of retarded.
Euthanasia, she was trying to say.
Euthanasia.
Euthanasia.
In Hebrew, euthanasia, but they thought they do not have a right to exist, but they thought that it serves like a greater cause, right? There is an ideology. Ideologies, they become dangerous when the ideology becomes more important.
Do you know this is a law in Sweden right now? That if
I'm not saying like mercy kill.
No.
I don't know. You're very sick.
No. In Sweden, when you're pregnant and you have a fertility test, or not a fertility test, but when they do the scan, if you have a baby with Down syndrome, you have to get an abortion. You're not allowed to have the baby.
Really? In Israel, it's a choice.
Which begs the question: how did Greta Thunberg get born.
Oh my god.
But no, it is a lot. But,
Is a hot topic in Israel. You have no
oh, I don't know.
idea.
I can imagine. She's
You have no idea. The Ministry of Education just took out her from all the materials, from everything that we teach. Like, we are not allowed to teach anything that is associated with her anymore.
thank God. There's a
No.
mural of her right down the street, and we walk past it every day. And
You can.
Greta's the best. She's my hero. I want her to run for president.
I condone hate speech, so I should just. I cannot find anything nice to say about her at the moment. I do not remember what we were talking about at this moment.
Wow. We
are talking forever. And I really wish you the best with the editing. You have so much material. It will be a double feature, I think.
Maybe. Is there any last thing you want to say? Any one thing?
The most important thing for me is to bring the hostages back home. We are worried.
Is there a website or something people can
there
look
are
at?
there are many websites that you can go into. I can, if we have a minute, I can just go online.
I'll put them on.
I'll send them to you. There's lots of website because there's the headquarters of the families, and also each family is running its own campaign for their family members, because there's so many people that they were abducted. It's like different scenarios, and different people have different information about their family, and some people have little information, some people are totally in the dark. If you are able to contact your representatives and ask them to help us retrieve our beloved ones home, I would appreciate it. And I know that some of you may disagree with the financial support of Israel, but I can assure you that it saves lives. Having the Iron Dome means that my house is safe from rockets when they're firing at it. So I am personally thankful for any dollar that is invested in that. And I thank you for having me over. Like, we're friends, and maybe I should take it for granted, but I'm not. I'm really happy for this platform to share and to shed some more light, because this is not a black and white situation. Other than terror is bad, but I think that those of you who have listened to this talk, you saw that the reality in Israel is far more complicated than you initially thought.
No, it absolutely is. And one thing I hope, I know this is a stupid thing to even wish for, but I really wish that every single person that has gotten so passionate about this in the past 2 or 3 weeks would just shut the fuck up, because they don't know anything. Like, it's very clear whenever all the people who have degrees in education in the Middle East and in politics aren't speaking publicly about this because they know the real issues. It's the most uneducated and ignorant people in society that have to go out and scream. And now that a lot of people are saying that social media has kind of created the decay of what Israel can do to the Palestinians, that Israel got away with their crimes for so long because there was no social media, but now it's impossible to ignore. Mm-hmm. But I think that's also just allowed so many people who have no idea of the reality of it to be involved, who otherwise have no business being involved. So educate yourself, people. Get smarter. Fucking, yes. That's what I want to say. Don't talk about shit you don't know about.
And I think that if you really want to know something, go to a local news website and read it. Now your browser can translate anything for you. It will be poorly translated, but I think you will get information.
You mean a local Israeli site?
That is more representative of the reality of the experience of people who actually live it, rather than foreign media that the information goes through so much filter that it's not our experience, it's not our reality, it's being filtered for a different kind of audience.
Yeah.
So even when you open up your paper and your radio, the information that you're getting is going through so much manipulation, not necessarily out of bad intentions, just because, you know, the local news in Tennessee and the local news in Amsterdam, you know, they would say different things.
It's damn right.
Yeah.
But okay, well, let's go have dinner. I'm hungry.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Thank you, everybody. Goodbye.